You are being watched now, all the time, everywhere you go, everything you do. On the street, online, even right now. You're granting your permission to be on a live stream just by attending, but today we don't have live stream. But we don't always give our permission to be monitored. Surveillance is ubiquitous, but our understanding of it is limited. Surveillance can be deeply personal. For example, Aditya, like many others, was recently detained by the TSA simply because of his ethnicity. But because we rarely see this kind of effect of surveillance on people, we don't have a personal relationship with it. Hi, I'm Meghana Khandekar, and it's time to change the way that we understand surveillance. There are stories we need to hear, and those are the stories I'm interested in surfacing. So I've created Surveillance Stories, a platform to make sense of our surveillance culture. But before we get to exactly how the platform works, I want to show that it's important to look at surveillance from these three lenses. First, our identity is the core of who we are, what we believe, who we affiliate with. We then participate in a society based on our set of values. We rely and use public and private services, express our beliefs, vote a certain way. These parts of our identity are personal, but can also be very public. And today, politically and culturally, we are increasingly defined through this information about us. Our collective participation makes up our society. Here, surveillance comes into play when core pieces of our identity are used by actors in society, by other actors in society to limit our rights or to discriminate against us. And privacy invasions and human rights violations can and do happen every day. In fact, United States has one of the highest levels of surveillance. Think stop and frisk practices or NSA's PRISM programs. So who we are, how we participate in society, and how surveillance society affects us is all interconnected. And these three lenses are the key to understanding the nuances of surveillance. Exploring this interconnectivity is the essence of Surveillance Stories. It features stories from ordinary people affected by and participating in surveillance culture. Nicole's story is about her experience of being private. Nicole's story is about experiencing privacy violations from a Department of Homeland Security officer. Jason's story is about his work experience as a TSA officer. And Aditya's story is about being detained by the JFK airport for 9 hours and being denied food and water for that entire time. So let's look at Aditya's story. It's a first-hand account of his experience. As you explore the story, highlighted portions are organized by identity, participation, and society. In this highlight, Aditya receives a piece of paper from an officer at the beginning of the security line. Unfortunately, it's essentially a way for him to be flagged down by the TSA when he reaches the end of the checkpoint. An annotation is contextual information about that highlight. This one contains basic information about the no-fly list and a way to know more about what happens if you choose to opt out of electronic screening. This one is about how people who opt out are treated differently. And another one about the groups of people who are detained most often. As you can see, the focus stays on the story, but there are always opportunities to look for broader patterns too. Aditya's laptop was also taken away while he was detained. Right now, there's a bill in Congress that affects the way our electronics are dealt with at the airport. the platform provides a way to directly contact the representative who proposed that bill. And here, the annotations from each story are grouped in a way that shows similarities between them. We can begin to understand that a one-person circumstance, it can be very similar to other people. That surveillance is not an isolated incident that happens to a certain type of person, but to many people. From here, we're also able to take direct action if we feel compelled to, from changing personal behavior to supporting campaigns or contacting policymakers. And here, people interested in contributing their own story are guided through a series of prompts. The platform categorizes and annotates their story at that point, which becomes part of the larger narrative. To recap, surveillance stories features ordinary people and their experience with surveillance culture. The platform then parses their story to give broader and interconnected picture. It also provides a way for us to do something about it. Starting with just a few people today, we can start to gather more stories over time, tens, hundreds, or even thousands, and to give people who are directly affected by surveillance culture a voice, a chance to tell their stories. By listening to these people, we will start to understand the world we've built of digital surveillance. And then we can decide together what we need to change. That's the goal of surveillance stories. Thank you.